Hello everyone and welcome back to the EL99 coursebook. In this video, we're going to be going over Unit 3, Travel Experiences. To be more specific, we're going to be starting with 3A and then working our way forwards in 2 other videos. So, without any further ado, let's hop in. What I'd like you to do before we start is I'd like you to pause the video and think of some attractions in your own home country, places that are a must visit. And I'd like you to think of 3 words to best describe these places. So pause the video, think of an attraction or a place that you think is very unique or is quite an important feature in your country, and choose 3 words to describe it. Okay, so I'm going to assume you did that. If it could be something like perhaps a restaurant. A restaurant, you could say words like delicious. You could also use some negative words if it's, for example, packed or crowded. So all of these are words that can be used to discuss or talk or express a unique place or feature in a country. Okay, now let's dive into 3A. Here we have unique people and places, describing life in different countries. Okay, start with 1 here. I'm going to reset this. It looks like we have 4 different pictures. What I'd like you to do is pause the video, look at each picture, and try to guess which country is which. We have the countries right here. We have South Korea, Finland, India, and Greece. It's a little bit of a geography test, but at the same time, I think most of you will be able to get it purely based off of looks alone. So I hope you're able to get them and that you pause the video. Let's go over them one by one. First, it looks like we have a big tower. I don't know the name exactly, but I know it's in South Korea. It was made, I think, in like the late 60s, if I'm not mistaken. And it was made to like broadcast television and radio stuff in the capital. But now it's more of a tourist attraction and a must visit. So this will be South Korea. For B, this one is pretty obvious to me because I know the blue buildings and the sea and the way people are dressed. This is Greece right away. I've seen this in movies. I haven't had the chance to visit yet, but I do have a few friends from Greece myself, and I've gotten pictures and stuff, so this is very similar. And then we have C. C looks to be somewhere that is very cold. And between India and Finland, Finland is definitely colder because Finland is north of Europe, which is quite cold with very harsh winters. So this will be Finland. And finally, obviously, this is India. From things like the architecture type all the way to the people, India is very crowded. So this will be India. Okay. Now that we've matched these, let's move on. Here we have read the 4 posts. What is special about each country? Okay, so we're going to do some reading, and I think the better option here is for me to... Let's see if I can find the reading inside. Yeah, I do. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pause the video, and what I'd like you to do is skim through each country and just get the general gist of what is going on. So for each country, we have India, Finland, Greece, and South Korea. What is good? What is bad? What is your personal opinion on everything? Take 30 seconds to a minute max and then come back. All right. So I'm going to assume you did that. Now what we're going to be doing is I'd like you to read them again, but this time focus on specific details. What do I mean by that? I'd like you to focus on what is special. You should have a general idea of what the text was about and what was said a little bit, but now I'd like you to focus more on what is special about each country. So go ahead. All right, so assuming you've now written what is special about each country, I'm actually going to open my notepad here, and we're going to go over each country one by one. So we'll start with India because it's the first one here. For India, I could say what is special about each country in a good way and a bad way. So I'll say people are I'll say people are clever and can find ways to fix or make something. So this is a big positive for the Indian folks. However, on the other side, we have it's very noisy and there's just lots of people. And again, these are not things that I'm bringing from my own mind. These are all in the text right here. It's very noisy in my city, and some of the drivers are crazy. So you don't have to write it as is, but it does have to be similar to what is being written in the text. At the end of the day, we're getting our information from the text. Let's move to Finland. For Finland, we could say something like people are strong and resilient. There's an I here. People are strong and resilient. There are beautiful mountains and lakes. Life is simple. But on the other side of that coin, it's also horrible in winter. So we could say winter is horrible because it gets dark and cold. Okay, so that was Finland. Again, these are all things that are special about each specific country. Let's go to Greece. Let's see here. For Greece, we can say something like, okay, so the food is really good. So we'll say something like the delicious food is made with love. Life is never boring. There's always something to do or someone to talk to. People are, however, usually not on time. They're not punctual. And some city, or sorry, not some cities, some parts of cities are dirty. All right, great. And finally, for South Korea, you say something like, it is very modern compared to the rest of the world. So, very modern country compared to other countries. What else? People are too polite, which is both a negative and a positive, by the way. And we'll talk about this in an upcoming exercise. And don't tell you what they're really thinking. Okay, so these were the things that are special about each country. For India, we have people are clever and can find ways to fix or make something. However, it's very noisy and there's lots of people. In Finland, people are strong and resilient. There are beautiful mountains and lakes. Life is simple. However, winter is horrible because it gets dark and cold. A lot more so than like your average winter in other countries. In Greece, delicious food is made with love. Life is never boring. However, people are usually not on time, and some parts of cities are dirty. For South Korea, it is a very modern, oh, that's modern. I should add an R here. Very modern country compared to other countries. People are too polite and don't tell you what they're really thinking. So people keep to themselves. Okay, that's great. Now let's move on. Uh, let's go to exercise 4. I'm going to reset this. Look at the words highlighted in purple in the 4 posts. Do the words have a positive or negative meaning? Can any of the words have both? Okay, so this is the exercise that I was talking about. I'd like you to read these one more time, but this time focusing on only the highlighted words. Read before it, read after it, so you can get a general idea of what the word means, and also if it is written in a positive or negative context. It can also be both. And then come down here and choose either positive, negative, or both for each one. So pause the video and do that now. All right, so now let me do it and then we can check answers together. What I don't like, there are too many people and too many cars. It's very noisy in my city and some of the drivers are crazy. It's very noisy in my city. It is here said in a context that is negative. I don't think anyone likes being in a very noisy city. So noisy will be negative. Some of the drivers are crazy. Again, this is someone complaining that drivers are reckless, crazy. This is negative. Let's go to Finland. Finland has beautiful mountains and lakes, and life here is quite simple. And we have the best schools in the world. So that's great. But the winter here is really horrible, very dark and cold. Life here is quite simple, is neutral. It could be something that is looked at as a positive. Sorry about that. Let me mute my phone. It is something that could be looked at as, hey, life is simple. It's nice. While for someone else, it could be taken in a negative way. They don't like simple life. They like it to be more outgoing, more places to visit, more things to do, etc. So simple here is a word that can be used in both contexts. What about the word horrible? But the winter here is horrible. Is it really horrible? Horrible is just straight up negative right away. There's nothing good about the word horrible. We use it to describe something that is very bad. So negative right away. Okay. What about Greece? So the food is made with meraki, which stands for, or what means love. And that's definitely a good thing. Our delicious food. I love life here because it is never boring. See, this is the opposite of simple. Or sorry, not the opposite of simple. The opposite of life in Finland. Life here is quite simple. Life in Greece is never boring because there's always something to do or someone to talk to. So it is never boring. In this context, boring is negative. Okay? And I love life here because it is never boring. If it was boring, the word itself, remember, we're not associating the whole sentence, just the word itself. The word is negative. So that's why it is never boring. What about the word modern? Let's see where the word modern is. It's in South Korea. Hello, I like my country because it is very modern. When friends visit Korea from other countries, they say my country is from the future. This could be taken both ways. Modern could be something that is good. A country is very futuristic in all sorts of things. But at the same time, it could be looked as something that is a negative. Not everyone is equipped to handle that level of technology just yet, especially people visiting. So we can say it is something that is both a positive and a negative. And finally, polite. But not everything about my country is good. Sometimes we are too polite and we don't tell people what we are thinking. This can be taken two ways. Polite, it's obviously a good thing to be a polite person, but here people are too polite to the point where they don't really tell you how they really feel. And as we all know, not communicating leads to resentment. So polite here can be taken in both contexts, positive and negative. Check answers. Here you go. All right, great. Before we move on to exercise 5, I'd like to take a look at the focus box here. We have something called antonyms. Antonyms are basically words that have the opposite meaning to another word. For example, if I say happy and you say sad, then that's the exact opposite. That is basically an antonym. What else could we say? Something like lovely, horrible. These are exact opposites. If someone is lovely, they're lovely, or it's lovely. But if someone is horrible, or it's something that is horrible, then that's the opposite. That is basically antonyms in a nutshell. It is useful to learn antonyms because it helps you understand the meanings of words and store vocabulary. So if you know the opposites of each word, you have more vocabulary and it helps you understand what they mean. Sometimes an antonym can have a different format. It could be a totally different word, so something like good, bad, up, down, white, black, etc. Or it could be the same word with a prefix added. A prefix is two letters usually added before a word to change the meaning, making it the opposite. For example, the word convenient becomes inconvenient. So if I say this is a convenient transportation method, it means it is something that's good for me. I enjoy using this transport method because it works for me and my situation. But if I add two letters to the word convenient, now it becomes inconvenient. It means it's something that is not good for my situation. Get the point? So now that we know what antonyms are, let's go to exercise 5. Let me reset this. We have crazy, quiet, lovely, complicated, boring, modern, and rude. Let's go over them one by one. So, crazy. What is the opposite of crazy? The opposite of crazy is something we call sensible. Quiet. The opposite of quiet is noisy. We saw this in the Indian part of the text because the city is quite noisy. Lovely. We just said this. Lovely, horrible. Complicated. What do you guys think? If something is complicated, the opposite of something being complicated is simple. When they say it's complicated, you usually know what that means in the context of relationships. If it's something that is simple, then it doesn't require much thinking. It's effortless. Boring. The opposite of boring would be something like interesting. Again, if it's an interesting city or an interesting subject, then there's always something to do. There's always something to figure out, as opposed to like a boring lecture or a boring subject where you're not interested at all because there's nothing to do. Modern, the opposite of modern is traditional, old school, if you will. So modern, traditional. And finally, rude, the opposite of someone that is rude is polite. Okay, so that was exercise 5. Now, let's go to exercise 6 here. See what we have. Underline the correct adjective to complete the sentences. Okay. So we have different adjectives to complete each sentence. I'd like you to pick one for each. Pause the video, go over them one by one. If you guys are in pairs in class, do them and then compare answers together. If you're on your own, just pause the video and do them and then come back, check answers. But this helps you try your own way of adding adjectives and learning new words as you go. And then you can check answers afterwards. So here we go. All right. For one, this classroom is very noisy or quiet. Everyone is speaking loudly. Remember, when choosing adjectives, don't just read this part and leave afterwards. When learning new words in general, it's a good idea to read before the word and after the word. It's a great way to figure out what a word means. So not everyone knows what every single word means. Even someone like me, someone like the best teachers out there, there's always words that you're not going to know the meaning to. But a good way to get a general idea of what the word means is to read before it and after it. So from this, the classroom is very quiet or noisy. I don't really get much, but because everyone is speaking loudly, aha, now it makes a lot of sense for it to be noisy. Make sense? All right. For B, I live in a very traditional/modern house. It is only 2 years old. 2 years old in real estate is nothing, so that is a very modern house. I think English grammar is really simple, complicated. Again, depends on who you are, but they added it's easy afterwards. If something is easy, it's really simple. We are very rude or polite to the teacher. We always say please and thank you. We associate words like please and thank you with someone being polite. So we are very polite to the teacher. My friends are crazy slash sensible. They play computer games until 1 a.m. every night. Again, playing computer games until 1 a.m. every night is not exactly the sensible thing to do. So crazy. Our teacher is lovely slash horrible. He always shouts at us. If anyone is shouting at you, then I don't think they're exactly the lovely type. So horrible is the word we're looking for. Let's check our answers. Here we go. Okay, I hope you got similar answers. If not, that's okay. Now you know what each of the words mean and their opposites. What else do we have? Okay, what I'd like you to do is take 3 to 5 minutes, pause the video, but before you pause the video, let me explain what you're going to be doing. Here we have a few questions, and if you're in class, I'd like you to think about these questions and take some notes down, and then discuss it with your partner. If you're at home, that's completely fine as well. Pause the video. There's no right or wrong answers here. Just discuss the questions with yourself. So, for example, what do you like or dislike about your country? It could be anything. There's no right or wrong answers as long as it makes sense. Um, which words from this lesson could you use to describe it? Some of the new words, perhaps something like lovely, horrible, complicated, traditional, or modern. All of these are new words that you could use. Um, and if there's a specific word or idea in your language that not a lot of people know about, how would you explain it to someone else? And could you figure out a word that is similar to it in English? All of these are great ways to not only discuss it with a partner if you're in class, but just think about it and talk out loud to practice your speaking if you're by yourself. So I think on that note, I believe we're done here. Yeah, we are. So this was this was unit 3, part 1. I will see you guys in the rest of the videos very soon. See you in the next one. Bye bye.